was an incentive to bring in teachers. But you're right, with this huge tax bill, SB 43, that I didn't vote for it, but we put forth, teachers didn't get any sort of raise or pay. So there are some things that I want to go back to Carson City and incentivize teachers. And, we have to look at where we're really putting out this money and where we're spending the money. Because, like you say, we're having to incentivize new teachers, but our current teachers haven't seen any kind of pay raise.
Hi, I'm Tim Patara. So, as a millennial voter, I want to ask you this question. A lot of people, they go from office to office and they bounce around and change jobs and they just kind of put on different hats and they become career politicians. So, what I want to ask you as a millennial voter, why should I elect you? I mean, why aren't you just starting your career as a politician just to bounce from office to office? Why should I trust that you're not trying to be a career politician to live the rest of your life as a politician or versus a servant of the people?
That's a very good question. I actually am the Assemblywoman of half of Senate 6. Both my colleagues in Senate 6, which would have been Senator Liparelli and Assemblyman Glenn Trowbridge, were appointed. I was actually the only elected in Senate 6. 80% of Nevadans, and I believe 76 or 78% of my district, voted against the gross receipts tax, the largest tax increase in Nevada state history. I decided to run for Senate because I believe, since they both voted for it, that they were out of touch with the constituents. I walked my district 3 times. I knew what the real issues were in Assembly 34, which is half of Senate 6, the squatter issue, the guardianship issue, and I felt like the colleagues who were currently in Senate 6 were out of touch, and that is why I decided to run for Senate 6.
Thank you.
Hello, Daphne Lee. I think I might have asked you this last time you were here running for Assembly, but it's kind of a growing issue. So the NSA has been revealed to be taking in all Americans' data unwarranted, and Congress has yet to act. They did like a fake pretends like reining in with the Freedom Act, but that actually expanded the powers of the NSA. And now the president is talking about expanding those access to that information to local law enforcement. So I know there was a little scandal last session where Metro might have been wiretapping some legislators. Imagine having the power of the federal government's metadata that's being taken in, your emails, your phone calls. Would you support legislation to protect the privacy of Nevadans?
Absolutely, and unfortunately, what you're talking about is on a federal level. But absolutely, I would support legislation to protect privacy acts, and be really up to date on what happened at the last legislative session.
Good afternoon. My name is Robert Faust. Where are you on firearms on campus as far as concealed weapons permits, and would you ever consider defunding school sports?
That's a good question. I have never thought of that, the defunding of school sports. But I wouldn't think that would be a good idea to defund school sports. I am a CCW carrier. I carry wherever I can. Campus carry was a very important bill to me because of rapes and of course, the Brianna situation where she ended up being murdered. I think that it's an unfair playing field when you have criminals that can bring firearms on campuses and yet innocent law-abiding citizens cannot protect themselves. I think we would be a lot safer if we would get rid of no gun zones. We would have, gun-free zones. We absolutely need to have the freedom to protect ourselves no matter where we are at all times.
Hi, Victoria.
Hi, Cindy.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
The United States Constitution limits the federal government's power, scope, and power of what they're able to do and how much land they're able to own. Several of our very own legislators went above and beyond in trying to mitigate a situation out of state and even in state. I did not see you as being one of those people, legislators. So I'd like to know where you stand on whether the federal government can do what they've been doing in terms of what the BLM has done to the Bundy family and also eminent domain, the taking of other people's private property
30 seconds.
In the name of security, etc. So what's your position on Nevada's land situation, public lands, and what will you do to prevent that situation from ever happening again?
Well, first of all, I think that we need to elect those on a federal level that will fight for our lands, because 87% of our lands do belong to the federal government. We are still a country of the rule of law, and so there are ways that we are able to change these laws, and I know it's hard and it takes certain steps, but we really need to educate the public on what's going on with our federal lands so that we can get those who will fight for our lands back. Because as long as they're in the hands of the federal government, we're going to see this overreach.
I'm Scott Lafata with Citizens for a Better America. My question revolves around the legislature in last session passed legislation to increase taxes and then for education, specifically for education, but refused to earmark it. Can you comment on that in terms of your position on earmarking funds out of the state assembly, or in this case, the state senate?
Are you talking about SB 483 specifically?
Well, yes and no. I mean, for instance, money comes from the state legislature down to the school districts, and the school districts spend it any way they want. A lot of times, the special programs get either defunded or short-sighted, so there's no specific direction from the legislature on how to spend it. Can you just give us a few thoughts about that?
Yeah, I was very disappointed at what we did this past session with SB 483. I think the first step is breaking up this Clark County School District, so it's actually the fourth largest in the nation. It's too big and it's out of control. And what this bill did, SB 483, was create a bunch of new programs with really little or no accountability as far as I'm concerned. And I was completely against the bill. I'm completely against 90% of the programs that were created. I think we're just creating more administration on top of administration, and we're going to continually have to raise money to feed these unnecessary programs, and I will fight and do anything I can to change that.
Okay, thank you very much, Candidate Seaman. Pleasure seeing you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it, and I would appreciate your endorsement. Thank you.
You guess you have well from when you go door to door.
I love him. I love him.
Okay, so that is Victoria Seaman, who is the only candidate for Senate District 6 who showed up today for the candidate interviews. Next, we will be taking on Senate District number 7, because we like sequence and order. Our candidates for State Senate District 7 are Kimberly Shang. Did I say your last name correctly?
Yes, on the first try. Very well.
There's a story about getting 1 million monkeys to type a mechanical typewriter. In their third month, they come up with the works of Shakespeare. There's a shorter story about wine, squirrels, and nuts. Please come up and have a seat. And then our other candidate is Tony Wernicke. Tony Wernicke amongst us? Okay, so to remind everyone of the rules, panelists, you each get 30 seconds to ask a question. We would ask our candidate to keep the answer to 60 seconds. Hopefully that way we'll get all 12 of you in with the question and be done in our allotted 30 minutes. And I guess, Jim, will you start, please?
Good afternoon, Kimberly. Thank you for attending. My name is Jim Jonas. I am the co-host for Veterans in Politics. My question to you is, recently the district attorney here in Clark County has stated that, according to state law, he does not believe that the Veterans Court, the actual NRS statute, that as it's presently written, dictates that veterans should be able to go straight to Veterans Court if it is resulting from a DUI or a drug-related offense. They actually should, like everybody else, go straight to the DUI court or to the drug court. If elected, what would you do to clear up that legislation so that the district attorney and everybody is on the same page that if, in fact, you are a veteran, you do have the right to go straight to the Veterans Court?
For one, I would like to make sure, especially for people who have taken the time to serve our country, need to be treated fairly, and to send them to the court, especially for offenses like that, tells me that they are being treated unfairly. They're being treated in a way that sounds like they're being made to be criminals. For one, if there's a specific court for veterans, they should be allowed to have all of the court cases taken to the specific court that is allotted for them. So I would make sure that if there's a court for them, that is exactly where they should be tried. And that is the way it should be. And I would make sure that is what happens, because if that's what's set up, that is exactly what should be happening. It is a veterans court, and that's where veterans should be going, and that's it.
Thank you.
Hi, Kimberly. I'm Scott, the father with Citizens for a Better America. What is your position on legalizing recreational marijuana?
My position for that is we've already seen the cases in Colorado where it has been treated. I mean, they have done a lot of testing on it that it actually has been proven medically to be of great help. We've seen good cases on that, and we've actually seen the revenue from it with the taxes that it actually has done well economically, to the point where they have been able to do a lot with it when it comes to education. And seeing as we're having some issues with education, if we can use the revenue for that as well as benefit people when it comes to health, I see that as something that we can champion. If it is something that's healthy and it helps people with ailments, and we've seen it do a lot more help than harm, I see this doing something great for our economy, so I would support that. Thank you.
Hello, Kimberly. My name is Cindy Lake. Thank you for being here. We have literally hundreds, if not thousands, of antiquated or even unconstitutional laws on the books in our statutes. Should you be elected, would you consider spending an entire session eliminating those antiquated and or unconstitutional laws rather than to write yet another law? We passed, I think, 400 or so just this last session. So would you consider spending your time eliminating those laws? Thank you.
So far, I've been asked some great questions, so this is not favoritism, but Cindy, you've asked one of my favorite questions. I'm a constitutional originalist, so I would love, if I had to spend an entire session just repealing all sorts of unconstitutional laws, I would take all that time, because I feel like we have lots of federal overreach. We have generations of people that have forgotten how to read the Constitution, so I would take all the time it takes to go ahead and remove that, because it has infringed on the rights of the people so much that people have forgotten for generations what a Constitution looks like. So I would like us to return to that.
Kimberly, good afternoon. My name is Robert Faust. Are you running as a Democrat or a Republican? And the question is, where is your position on firearms on campus? Not high school, but college.
I'm actually running as a libertarian. That's because I'm pretty much in the middle. I basically see that government and the state should be there to protect life, liberty, and property, and that's about it, is what the government and state should be for. And as for concealed carry on college campuses, I'm for that because people should be able to protect themselves. And I'm clear on the Second Amendment that the right to bear arms shall not be infringed, and I am pro on that, on concealed carry.
Daphne Lee here. I'm not sure if the state legislature has jurisdiction on this, and there might be somebody who can clarify this. I was recently approached by a Air Force veteran who is working diligently to learn and promote hypnotherapy as a treatment for PTSD, and his concern was that it wasn't legal to use within the veterans hospital. So I'm not sure if the Nevada, I hear a lot of veterans hospital questions, so I'm not sure if this would fall in Nevada legislative jurisdiction. But if it did, would you be willing to promote hypnotherapy as an alternate choice of therapy for PTSD for veterans?
In my mind, if it is, whatever we have to do for veterans, because, I mean, they serve our country, and they come back, and it's whatever we can do to help them. They're not getting enough help when they come back, and if that's what helps certain veterans, and if it's something that's safe and proven to help them, whatever we have to do to help our veterans, I'm willing to do.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tim Pitara. So, full disclosure, you're not much older than I am, so I think that's refreshing, just FYI. So, as a millennial voter, my main concern is, going through a political process, what do you bring to the table that none of your opponents do? Like, what makes you special, I guess?
I would say, of course, it has to be, especially in my district, I've lived there for a long time. I would say probably a professional student almost. I'm on my third degree in economics there. I've lived in the district, but also the fact that I've grown up around a lot of people who are also older than me. So having the benefit of being somebody, I'll be 33 next week, but also having the guidance of people who are older than me that have been around, and just trying to bring both the younger people, the younger voters, and the older voters together and seeing eye to eye and knowing that to get the district running in a way that helps the people the most, because I think if we all work together and just saw that it doesn't matter what background we're all coming from, this place is for all of us, and we all need to get together and make sure it runs the best for us and our children and for generations to come.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Teller Snapper, and I want to know if elected, what is the first issue you plan to tackle once you get in office?
One of the key things I really want to get is education, because I really think that is where a lot of things start. Because if you think about it, generations to come, is the people who really help run the economy are, of course, people who are coming from schools. And also we have to think about the fact that our school system, I've heard questions about like the allocation of funds in schools, what we're going to do for our teachers that are already here, incentivizing and all of that. I really want to figure out what we're going to do for our education system, because these are people who are going to go out to the market, and these are going to be people that are supplying things that we buy or work for our businesses. So we've really got to figure out what we have to do for our education system, because I think that's very important, and I think that would be one of my main focuses.
If you were to become elected to the state senate, one of the big problems we have in Southern Nevada, of course, is a lack of resources for mental health treatment. I'm not talking just about veterans, I'm talking the public and the population in general. What would you do to try and increase and improve the delivery of mental health services for citizens of Clark County?
I actually work IT for the UNR School of Medicine, and I see a lot of this. We do have our Mojave campuses that deal with a lot of mental illness, and one of my areas of study in economics is, of course, economics is dealing with the allocation of scarce resources, and having that knowledge in mind of trying to figure that out. It would be a lot of trying to figure out exactly what resources do we have, and resources not exactly just dealing with money. We have to see what are the issues that we have, what facilities do we have, what treatment do we have, what kind of staff we have, and try to figure out what best ways we can help people. If we need more facilities, if we need more training, what exactly do we have? What are our resources? And what do we have to do to get more resources? Because really, the mental stability of people is very important. Whatever we have to do, if we have to enact legislation, whatever we have to do, it's bottom line what we have to do to budget and get this sort of thing done. And it's just sitting down and seeing what we have right now and how can we best allocate things and figure it out from there. So I would actually have to see what we have in place and cut the fat where we need to. But the main thing is just focusing on what we have to do, because mental health is important, and whatever we have to do to get people's health is important, because that's the goal.
Thank you. I'm going to ask an off-the-wall question, Len Connell, and I'm just going to leverage on your IT background. I've heard from state treasurers and state comptrollers that the IT systems in Nevada used for the state's accounting systems are prehistoric and antiquated. We also let the state of Arizona collect our taxes, and we farm on a lot of things that maybe we could do in-house, and that costs us millions of dollars. So as an IT person and a politician, have you ever thought of that, and maybe what you would do if you held a state office?
Oh yes, I have definitely thought of that, because it seems that there aren't a lot of IT people. It seems like it's easier to outsource your IT, and I think this ties in a lot with education. We could be using a lot of the people that are in our colleges and even in high school that are interested in computer science, that we could be growing them into internships in college and starting them up there, so that they know as they're working in college that they might be working into these sort of situations. We could be using the resources that we have here in Nevada. These people are already getting their degrees in computer science that could be learning these things. We could be training these people up now, because including me, we have the resources here. We could be building these people up to do this sort of thing. So yes, we could actually be doing that here. We don't even have to outsource that. We have young millennials that are that smart right now. We could be doing that.
Will Crespo asked this question of several candidates earlier, and I'll ask it of you also. If you're elected to the state senate, I know everyone's pro-veteran. They like veterans. They want to name buildings after veterans, and that's great. But for the veterans that are here today that are looking for jobs, one official said that they couldn't have programs that gave veterans, let's say, an extra 5 points or some extra incentives to get the public employee job. If that is so, would you be willing to attempt to pass legislation that would help veterans, make it easier for veterans to get these public jobs?
I say definitely. I mean, there's something to say. If you're fighting for the freedom of everybody here, you've done something that a lot of us have not gotten the chance to do, or maybe haven't stepped up to do. So there is something in that. You've stepped out there to do something that a lot of people don't do. So I would definitely do that. And I think one of the things that would be important to do as veterans come back is to help them to get to a situation and just help them out. So I think that's a process that I would love to put into place, is to make sure veterans are put in a position where they can excel and they can succeed. So I wouldn't see any problem with enacting legislation that would help veterans to be able to get jobs. And yeah, I would help them to get a leg up.
Rob Lauer, since we're talking about mental health issues, and obviously that relates to homeless people, maybe not just veterans, we have actually very significant homeless population here. And one of the reasons for that, in some people's opinion, is during the 70s, the Supreme Court ruled that it was illegal, unconstitutional to be able to commit mentally ill people to a hospital against their will. So they're instead floating around the cities, and they cannot be adjudicated as mentally ill and put into institutions against their will. So they get to float around. What's your thought about that? Should there be some way to address that issue? Should homeless people that are mentally ill be able to be committed?
Well, for one, I think the first step would be not even just thinking about getting them. Shouldn't we be thinking about getting them help first to figure out why they are wandering around? Should we be getting them some shelter and some food first? Because we could be finding out what is exactly troubling them by finding out what their state is If they've been wandering out there, it could be lack of food, it could be lack of sleep, it could be other things. And if we have the chance to get to know them and figure it out, maybe we can actually ask them if they want to get help first. So I think we need to figure out what state they're in before we even think about trying to see if we can commit them against their will. We need to figure out why they're in that situation first and decide that. So I would think of getting them shelter and food first and see what their situation is. I don't want to think about committing anybody against their will until I know their situation.
Fred Conquest, Citizens for a Better America. As a libertarian, traditionally, a libertarian would not be for single-payer health care. But given the serious problems of health care providing mental health, veterans' health in Nevada, could you support a single-payer health care bill that was somewhat of a private-public partnership to help people get and increase the numbers and health care available to Nevada?
What I would mainly support is, number one, if there was an ability to have private health insurance, I would definitely support that. And a number two thing would also be, with the insane amount of tax hikes we see, is some of the reason why we can't afford good health care. So if we were able to lower the tax burden on people, we would be able to have more money. If we had more free market, we would be able to have more money, so people would be able to pay for their health care. So if we had a system where you were able to have private health care and you had more of your money in your pocket, we wouldn't have as much strain to have to force these kinds of universal health care on people. But if we were able to have private health insurance that was state-oriented, then I would support that. But definitely for veterans and all that sort of thing, we need to have better insurance in place and less tax burden on people so they have the money in their pocket to begin with.
Kimberly Shang is who we've been hearing from us. She's our candidate for State Senate District 7. Kimberly, would you give us a 3-minute bio?
Yes. So I was born here in Las Vegas, and as I said earlier, I worked IT at the UNR School of Medicine. I got an English degree and a film and music tech minor at UNLV School of Medicine. I'm also now currently an economics major at the Lee School of Business at UNLV. I have lived in District 7 for a good percentage of my life, so I definitely know the district very well. I got into this race mainly because one of the things that I did notice about the city is that I think at this point in time, especially with the main race in the presidential race, we're seeing at this point millennials are important at this point in time to get in politics, but I also saw that I wanted to see a return to some of the traditional values as well as some of the millennial values. So I thought it was a good time to see those two things kind of mesh together. I think it's important that we would return to a more constitutional government because I believe that there is too much federal overreach. And I heard a lot of questions about the Bundy situation. I do also agree that the government shouldn't have so much control over land. And I feel like this is now more than ever that America should be hearing from people that the federal overreach is too much. And that is why I got into this race. And that's why I'll continue to keep speaking out and keep running. If I'm not elected now, I will keep going because I think this is the time for people, especially on the state and local levels, to keep going. So
I don't know if I should ask you about the Windows 10 pop-up or my elbow.
The hardest part, you have Windows 10. That could be. So, that could be a problem.
I won't get started.
At least not on our time.
Thank you, Candace. Thank you, Kimberly. We will take a 5-minute break. We will resume at 3 o'clock with candidates from State Senate District 11.